Hello guys, welcome back to Wonderful Aircraft Weekly. Today I am joined by a special friend who doesn't want to show her face. This is my friend, or my pet, Bunsen. She's a rat. I'll introduce her later this week in a more in-depth video, but I had her out and about, so I figured I'd just keep her with me for now. Today we're going to be talking about the 10 aircraft that I have chosen that you have probably never heard of. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Kicking things off with one of the less rare aircraft on this list, the Northrop YF-23. The YF-23 was one of two competitors for the US's Advanced Tactical Fighter program in the 90s. It demonstrated superb capabilities in speed, stealth, and handling. In the end, however, it lost to the Lockheed Martin YF-22, largely due to the YF-22's superior maneuverability as a result of thrust vectoring. The YF-23 did, however, seem to be stealthier and faster. Instead of becoming scrap metal in a junkyard, the two YF-23 prototypes were preserved in museums. The first prototype, PAV-1, is at the National Museum of the United States Air Force near Dayton, Ohio. The second prototype, PAV-2, is at the Western Museum of Flight in Torrance, California. Today, there is still much dispute over whether or not the USAF made the correct decision in picking the YF-22 over the YF-23. What do you think? Leave a comment below. At number 9, the Dornier Do. A great aircraft in its own right. Unfortunately, it was just a bit too late to the party to make its mark. The Dornier Do. Forget it. It utilized a unique push and pull twin engine design that gave it unmatched speed and acceleration while still maintaining fighter-like maneuverability. However, due to trouble getting parts because of round-the-clock Allied bombings and a poorly functioning ejection seat, meant that the war ended before it got a chance to shine. So production was cancelled as jets were coming onto the scene and piston-powered fighters were becoming obsolete. Two V-12 engines produced a combined output of around 3,600 horsepower, and wings with about a 13-degree leading-edge sweep promised a speed in close to 500 miles per hour, a number that wasn't seen in most other piston fighters of the time, except for these next ones, at number 8, the XP-47H and J. Another highly promising World War II design that saw its end with the end of the war, the P-47H was a major reworking of two existing P-47Ds to accommodate a Chrysler IV-2220 water-cooled inverted V16 engine that gave the Thunderbolt a speed capability of 490 mph in level flight. Similarly, the XP-47J was a redesigned P-47 that was lighter, had more advanced wings, and an upgraded R2800 engine with almost 3,000 horsepower. In 1944, it set a speed record for a piston engine aircraft at 505 mph in level flight, and this record was not surpassed until 1989. At number 7, the Horten Ho. Another extremely advanced design to come out of late war Germany, the Ho was quite possibly the most advanced aircraft of its time. It was born from a requirement to carry 1,000 kilograms of bombs 1,000 kilometers whilst flying at 1,000 kilometers per hour. The speed requirements were only attainable by jet aircraft, but they were also too fuel hungry to meet the range requirements. However, there was a solution. A flying wing design meant that the weight and drag were significantly reduced, so less power and thus less fuel was needed to meet the speed requirement, and thus the Ho was born. It was largely made of wood and some metal, and had many ahead-of-its-time technologies such as elevons, ejection seat, pressure suit, and tricycle landing gear, and lately has been rumored to have possessed some limited stealth ability, although it is unknown if this was done intentionally. At number 6, the Beechcraft Starship. Though it was developed in the 80s, the Beechcraft Starship still looks like nothing else in the skies. This executive business turboprop uses pusher engines, sword-like wings, and canard foreplanes. This gives the aircraft great aerodynamics and fuel economy. It is made of lightweight composites and can carry 8 passengers a distance of over 1,700 miles, and the rearward-facing props make the cabin a very quiet place. On landing, the Starship's canards swing to 4 degrees of forward sweep to provide extra lift. This gives the Starship respectable short field performance. Despite these pros, there are only a few Starships in service, as only a few were purchased before production ceased in 1995. At number 5, the Vought XF5U. The Flying Flapjack was a radical design by Vought that utilized a circular-shaped wing that was also the fuselage. The V-173 test aircraft proved that this design was very efficient and virtually stall-proof. It was meant to be an advanced carrier-based fighter, and thus short-field performance was very impressive, and the V-173 could maneuver almost like a helicopter. It promised to be very fast and significantly maneuverable as well, featuring two 1,300 horsepower piston engines that drove large propellers next to them through complex drive shafts. The idea was that one engine could power both props in the event of an engine failure. However, the complexity of this system led to many problems with the transmission. This, combined with the quickly increasing obsolescence of piston engine aircraft, meant that the XF5U never flew and was scrapped in 1947. At number 4, the Rutan 151 Ares. In the late 1980s, there was an Army requirement for a low-cost, close-support aircraft, and as a result, Burt Rutan designed the Agile Response Effective Support, or ARES, and it looked like nothing else before or since. It featured a single 2,000-pound thrust turbofan engine mounted off to the left aft fuselage to avoid ingesting gun gases, and the intake was angled to shield the fan blades from ground radars. Like the A-10, it was designed from the outset around a large rotary cannon. The Ares cannon was a GAU-12 25mm 6-barrel gun with 220 rounds. Due to its light weight, canards, and large control surfaces, the Ares demonstrated great agility, low-speed handling, and the tail booms helped shield the exhaust gases to infrared-guided missiles. It had a payload of 6,000 pounds and a range of over 1,000 miles. But with the end of the Cold War, the U.S. Army no longer needed large numbers of low-cost close-support aircraft, and so the Ares was shelved in 1995. At 3, the Northrop Xp-79. Northrop was always interested in flying wings, and the Xp-79 was no exception. The Xp-79 used a unique prone pilot position, which gave the pilot much higher G-tolerance and great forward field visibility. It was initially planned to have a single rocket engine, but was instead fitted with 2 turbojets on either side of the fuselage. It promised very high speed and great performance. It was first flown on September 12, 1945. Unfortunately, this would be the only flight it made, as the flight ended with a fatal crash after entering a spin. This setback, combined with the end of World War II, meant that the USAF lost interest in the project and it was abandoned immediately. At number 2, the AD-1. The NASA AD-1 was built to explore the same principles seen in the F-111 and F-14, and that is variable wing sweep for different speeds during flight. Like the Ares, the AD-1 was designed by Burt Rutan. It featured a unique wing that could be changed from a normal configuration at low speeds to an oblique angle up to 60 degrees for higher speeds. This design proved it could increase both speed and range of the aircraft. The unique oblique wing design was a simpler way of achieving the same thing the F-111 and F-14 had achieved, and concepts for oblique wing airliners were drawn up. The program lasted from 1979 until 1982, and much valuable information was acquired. Though the program may be over, it is possible we could see similar technology in the future. At number 1, the XFV-12. The Rockwell XFV-12 was a supersonic V-stall fighter that showed great potential, though it was never flown. It had a very advanced 30,000-pound thrust engine and used a thrust-augmented wing design that directed exhaust gases through ducts and out to special ejector flaps in the wings and canards. This design made for more thrust than normal when in vertical mode, giving the potential to take off vertically with larger payloads. In conventional flight, it was speculated that the XFV-12 would have had respectable performance, such as speeds in excess of Mach 2 and decent maneuverability. Though it was never flown, it was suspended from a tower for hovering tests, and although the design was made to have a lot of thrust while hovering, it was found that because of the excessive ducting, the thrust that actually made it to the ejector flaps was minimal. These restrictions were hard to avoid with the technological and budget limitations at the time, and this caused many setbacks. Eventually, the XFV-12 program faded away in the late 70s. The design in theory was very promising, but unfortunately Rockwell just didn't have the budget or technology to make it work at the time. But with V-stall looking more and more like a big part of the future for fighter aircraft, it's not impossible that we could see a more advanced version of this same VSOL system in the future. And that concludes this list of the best aircraft you likely never heard of. If you have any other unique aircraft that you know of, please feel free to post it in the comments below, and give this video a like if you enjoyed it. If you want to see more aviation videos in the future, consider subscribing if you haven't already. And with that, keep calm and fly high, and I will see you next time.